Hello, good people, and welcome to Off the Deep End, a Deep Listens podcast where we cover role-playing video games in depth. I am your host, Braden Arbitrary Water Redacted, the FIST forged in shadow torch of this podcast. Joining me, as always, is Chris Zombie Pie Redacted, the Disc 2 of Lost Odyssey of this podcast.
That's when it gets really slow. I'm glad to be with two fellow people on the internet that now need to reconsider letters of resignation that they have submitted publicly.
Don't worry about it. I haven't written anything that I've immediately had to backpedal on and go, lol, well, despite the fact that I'm still, in retrospect, probably a good idea that we didn't go with our initial plan for last week's filler pod, huh?
Yes. It's good. It's a good thing that we did some sort of bullshit, shoot the shit.
Post, talk about TV shows.
But
further joining us is the
person who has to rescind their resignation letter.
Yeah. But further joining us, yes, is Adam Borgmaster Redacted.
That actually was pretty easy for me to. Oh wait, what am I?
You're the Terra Battle 2.
Shit.
Would you prefer to be the Blue Dragon Plus?
I'll be the Blue Dragon Plus.
The Blue Dragon Plus of this podcast. Maybe we should just play Blue Dragon Plus instead of Blue Dragon.
Or both? Why not both?
Yeah, why not both?
Because Blue Dragon is 60 hours of the lamest Dragon Quest 3/5 ripoff you've ever seen in your life.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought everyone would love Dragon Quest 3.
Yeah, but what if it was lame and 60 hours long?
Well, that depends on how you play Dragon Quest 3.
And had the funniest boss music you've ever heard in your life.
Ooh, there's that.
Boss music.
But no, my resignation forum post was easily rescinded by just...
Because you didn't post it?
No, I had a post where...
He did.
Yeah, I even did the George Carlin's 7 words thing.
Yeah.
And then I just made another post that was like, never mind. And then here we go.
I just put a little edit at the bottom of my post going, lol, never mind. I'm still going to start putting my writing somewhere else, though.
You really should.
Probably a good idea.
You should cross those. Get a website.
Yeah. Get a website.
You should incorporate as an LLC for tax purposes.
Use
just in
offer code Dubious Wheel and get 10% off of your website.
Be pretty good, actually.
It's good. It's good to record this podcast in the days after what has happened. I feel good. I think we all feel good.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some fears and things to talk about later, but
for the audience at home, we're talking about Giant Bomb. The current owners of Giant Bomb are now the people who work for it. It is an independent, employee-owned corporation.
Yeah, Bacalar and Grub have pulled the reverse Uno card, now own the site. We are, all three of us, members of that community and have, I would say, published some of the more popular forms of writing and blogging on that site. And all three of us, I think, to an extent, said that if this is going to happen, we're probably not going to continue to post on the site. And we joke, but we're back, baby!
Which is really good for me because my Blue Sky account was going nowhere because I was just posting about old Shutoko battle games, getting no traction.
You need to have really questionable political takes and or post a lot of pornography, I'm to understand. That's how you get traction on Blue Sky.
So just rant screenshots.
Yeah, you're either like... You need to tell people that they are betraying Maoism.
I mean, yes. Well, I mean, they are.
Yeah, there are a lot of tankies, Borg, on B-Sky.
Or you need to post pictures of Rouge the Bat who is
Yeah.
as wide as she is tall.
Okay, I mean, I could just do screenshots of old PC98 porno games.
That would get
That could
traction.
work. That could get traction. I mean, it worked for Hardcore Gamer 101.
Hardcore Gaming 101, baby.
All right, so why are we here?
Why are we
Mr.
here?
Warner?
Oh, well, yeah, we played a video game for this podcast
Uh-huh.
called The Last Story.
It's the last one.
Yeah, it's the last one. No,
Like Final
this is
Fantasy.
part of my picks for this year, which are the year of self-justification, in which I pick games exclusively that I paid too much money for within the last 5 years. And The Last Story was one of them. It was developed by Mistwalker Corporation and co-developed by R-Tune.
Oh, it's an Artoon joint. Oh,
Yes.
explains everything.
Yeah, no, they also co-developed Blue Dragon with Mistwalker. It came out originally on the Nintendo Wii on January 27th, 2011. It did not come to the United States until, let's see, August 14th, 2012. It also came out in the UK on February 24th, 2012. So, a bit of a gap there. But, this is a Mistwalker joint. It is Hironobu Sakaguchi following the end of, let's say, his time at Square Enix because of a movie. There was a movie. He made a movie. It was boring.
Yeah.
And it lost a lot of money.
And he had
Have
to
y'all done a
leave.
Final Fantasy podcast about that movie yet?
Yes.
Oh, darn. Okay.
Yes, they did a podcast on Spirits Within. I will say it again for my sake that Spirits Within, the most interesting part about that movie is the story of how it was made and like all of the weird, let's say, .com bubble shit they were doing, like building a studio, a movie studio and CG production house in Hawaii, in Honolulu, with the most expensive square foot.
I mean, wasn't Final Fantasy
Market
9
in the
developed in
United
Hawaii?
States, yeah.
Because that's where just Sakaguchi just decided to live.
I mean, Hawaii's
Yes
pretty
and
cool.
no. Yeah.
Yes and no.
He-
And like
I would
Mistwalker's
say
based
that
on
with
Hawaii.
9,
Yeah.
he was when he started to like partially move to Hawaii. And then after 9, he does the movie where he fully commits to moving and relocating to Hawaii.
Because Mistwalker's in Hawaii.
Yeah. Miss Walker
Yes.
still to this day is in Hawaii, though I am led to believe that it is not the massive team that led this game and the other Mistwalker projects
Yes.
on the 360.
Oh, yeah. Like maybe a dozen
Um,
people these days.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it also sounds like they contract a lot of the work that they've done for those.
Yeah,
mobile
it sounds
projects.
like they're closer to something like, well,
Other Japanese expats and locals that have joined him since the very
Yeah.
beginning. But even before the move to Hawaii, Sakaguchi kind of enjoyed being in the United States. We pointed the fact that the lead programmer on 3, his visa expired, and they had to relocate the production of 3 in California. And it was a relatively positive experience for him. This is another game that I feel like we are going to. I mean, this is not derisively so, but there is a backstory to this game that is almost as compelling as the game itself. There was the fact that it came out and people liked it in Japan, and then we didn't really know if it would ever come out outside of Japan. For those of you that have grown up with the Switch, when Nintendo made a video game, it wasn't guaranteed to ever leave Japan. I know, crazy, wild. You'd think at this point we'd get some sort of Switch port of Doshin the Giant, but like, it's true. Even Nintendo sometimes only made games that stayed and lived in Japan.
All of those Captain Rainbow fans out there.
And then there's every single Animal Crossing game before the GameCube game that came out here.
Well, there's only one.
Well, I mean, yeah, but still.
And it was for the N64, and the GameCube was just a port of that.
Yeah. So, not unheard of at the time that this game wasn't going to come out to the United States, and it required a fan effort. Let's put that in air quotes. Should we put that in air quotes? I think we should put that in air quotes.
We should put that in air quotes. So, for those of you who are, let's say, about 5 to 10 years younger than us, and only remember the Wii as like a vague childhood memory, there was a period where Nintendo of America basically gave up. They said, we're making it hand over fist, selling Wii Sports Resort, and Wii Play. And, and we don't need to do anything else. There was a real hesitance towards anything that was a little too niche, I would say, because when I think about the late Wii era, I think Galaxy 2, Skyward Sword, and then a bunch of question marks.
I mean, Metroid Other M was what, 2010?
Oh, buddy, sure was.
Yeah, there you go.
That game's fine, actually.
But yeah, it's the third parties came to them. They didn't go to the third parties.
And yeah, so games that came out in Japan that were published by Nintendo of Japan, a lot of them did not come over. That's why the second DS Fire Emblem game never came over here, despite being way better than the first DS Fire Emblem game. But as part of that, there was a trio of JRPGs that came out in Japan and were relatively popular that, let's say, weebs really gravitated towards. And
those weebs started a movement, I should say an organization known as Project Rainfall, whose expressed purpose, at least in the onset, was bringing those 3 games to any part of the world that wasn't just Japan.
Well, the other part is those games also came out in the UK.
Yeah. So
that is the other wrinkle. Is Nintendo of Europe bothered to localize and bring over those games?
That's why everyone in the Xenoblade franchise is British in it.
Yeah, and that's the weird legacy of that, is that Xenoblade, that's why everyone's British.
But those 3 games were, Braden,
number
1,
Xenoblade Chronicles.
Number 2,
The Last Story.
And number 3,
Pandora's Tower.
2 of those games are good.
Yeah.
2.
Don't worry.
We'll get to Pandora's
Tower
eventually.
One of those games became like a massive franchise.
Yeah, of those games, one became a massive franchise. The other game is good, and we played it for the purposes of this podcast. And the third one is Pandora's Tower.
I have a copy of Pandora's Tower right next to me.
We'll get to it eventually.
I'll find out how good it is. Gotta feed my lady all of the monster parts. But it's important to remind the audience at home that in the late aughts and early 2010s, JRPGs were in, let's say, a malaise. There were still games coming out that people fucking love. Your Radiant Historias, for example.
I mean, the Atelier franchise was a yearly franchise.
You know, and the Tales of series chugging along just fine.
Yeah, that Wii game. Everyone loves that Wii game.
There was a malaise. And I would say a lot of that has to do with FF13. Because we were there. We were all there. And I remember how Final Fantasy 13 sort of poisoned the well for a lot of discussion around Japanese RPGs, especially on HD consoles.
Like, especially after all the delays and hype cycles that
Yeah.
it went through. Like, it was a big deal before it came out, and then it came out, and everyone saw what Final Fantasy 13 was.
I mean, you joke, but Final Fantasy 13, I think in part because of the multi-platform release, was the best-selling entry in the series.
Yeah, the hype
and
was real.
We joke about it on the main podcast, but it's pretty important to always communicate this. There is a generation of people whose frame of reference for what is a Final Fantasy game, what are the expectations for a Final Fantasy game, start with 13.
I mean, do you want to hear a confession I have for you
What?
two? Final Fantasy
Was it the first
13
one?
was my first Final Fantasy, and it made me think that JRPGs were bullshit for like 3 years before I gave it another
That's totally
try.
fine. My first Final Fantasy game was 8.
My
And
first Final Fantasy game was 4
I was
on the GBA.
You're all old.
like 8 is my oldest, is where I start. And it was part of a now kind of humorous to look at in hindsight blog series on giantbomb.com. But
Hey, that was
the
your blog series.
series and this genre was going through stuff, and in part because, and this is kind of the key to like the struggles of Square, and even to a certain extent Enix, because we sometimes forget this fact. Had it not been for those DS games, Dragon Quest probably still would have been a very domestic series that was like dealing with some weird technical struggles and making the leap from the PS2 to, you know, that generation of games, the 360, PS3, and even the Wii.
I mean, it skipped
Those
that
DS
generation.
games broke the dam. But even then, before then, like only weirdos really cared about JRPGs. Persona 4 definitely helped, but it really wasn't until like Persona 5 when that series and anything made by Atlas became, I would say, mainstream. So this game operates in, and I think you're kind of pointing to this, this is still when JRPGs were inside baseball. It was considered a niche genre outside of Japan. Wouldn't you agree, Braden?
Sure, yeah. I mean, FF was big.
The people who liked Nihon Falcom games back in the
Yeah.
early 2000s,
I mean, those
They were
people are
there.
still freaks.
they were there. They probably had a point, but
yeah,
they were not mainstream.
Look, Falcom fans, were freaks, are freaks, and will be freaks.
Yeah, this is around the time Trails in the Sky 2nd came out in the States. Right?
That's like 2015, wasn't it? Like,
Or no, it was later. You're right. The first Trails in the Sky came out in the US in like 2011, right?
What about the reboot
2012 or
Ys
so,
games?
yeah.
When did those come out?
Sporadically.
I don't remember if they came out in the US day and date or years later. But
yeah,
I think that context, the historical context, is important when talking about Project Rainfall, because we currently live in a world where Persona is a popular mainstream video game franchise, and Je suis RPG, Claire Obscure sold like 1 million copies in 2 days. People like these things now. But in the 2010s, no one was giving the genre a shot outside of let's say some people with some axes to grind, some baggage.
That them there, Ni no Kuni,
Kuni
it
was
had
carried
that.
by the Ghibli connection.
Yeah.
So, and even like The only reason why Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon got the mainstream distributions is because Microsoft wanted to send a message.
Oh yeah, Microsoft like heavily marketed those games. Like they really tried to make them a thing. And I mean, a lot of people played Lost Odyssey.
Yeah, people
They,
like
they
Lost
really
Odyssey.
wanted people in Japan to buy Xbox 360s.
And instead,
And
they just
to a
sold
certain degree,
JRPGs to Americans.
yeah, they sold
Yeah.
JRPGs to Americans, but to a certain degree, they were finally like making progress on that front, even in Japan.
Yeah, they went from selling hundreds to selling thousands of consoles.
Yeah, and
Tenfold
yeah,
increase.
the yeah,
Progress,
and
right?
that's a different conversation. Is although Mistwalker is part of that conversation, is Microsoft trying desperately to get Japanese gamers to give a shit about the 360 by money hatting a bunch of exclusives.
And the odd thing is like, say what you will about like how it was still behind the PS3 or the Wii, and it was, but they had kind of carved like a weird niche. This was explained to me by Pepsi Man. Is like the 360, in terms of like being a recovery from the disaster that was the original Xbox, did okay in Japan. Now, it wasn't because of JRPGs, as Pepsi Man pointed out. It was because, and I know I've said this before, for whatever reason, the 360 had an exclusivity deal with the Idolmaster franchise, and the Idolmaster franchise moved literal thousands, hundreds of thousands of units of 360s in Japan. Like,
Weren't there also a bunch of cave shooters that only came
there
out on
were,
360?
there were, but it was
Yeah.
Idolmaster. Like that series being a 360 exclusive moved hundreds of thousands of units. Anyways,
Oh, I always assumed that the 360 sold in Japan because associated with first-person shooters and like the tens of thousands of like Japanese guys who are like weirdly into like military stuff.
those people
Westaboos?
exist, and they definitely still have hung on to the even like the Xbox Series S and X. But you know, weird thing in hindsight, Idolmaster. Just for whatever reason, the Idolmaster people are like, we want to make video games that aren't arcade games. Who's going to take our money? And it was Microsoft of Japan. But anyways, so Lost Story, genuinely a game with some big names to it. Didn't seem like it was going to get any form of distribution outside of Japan and the United Kingdom. And it's kind of weird to say in hindsight that this was ever a problem, but it was. And, you know, Project Rainfall played a role in getting it here. Now, one quickie, I think I am kind of jumping the gun here. Do not go to Project Rainfall's website or check out what they've been up to recently. Just don't. Don't do it.
I mean, when it comes to gamer movements in general, just don't.
But yeah, unsurprisingly, the people who currently are in charge of that name are the people who
It's that group of people.
yeah, and
For
it's the
those
people who care about quote unquote censorship.
I decided to turn on Safe Browser and see what they were, and it was literally a post talking about how they felt like it was censorship that a character in a gotcha game didn't have camel toe in the Western release of the game.
Yeah.
It's that group of people. We're not going to get super into them. This ends up getting picked up thanks to Operation Rainfall by Xseed Games, now known today as Marvelous USA, whose kind of whole deal today seems to be hey, if you're a Japanese developer and want your shit translated into English, we're your guy. We're the studio to do that. And they do, I would say they generally do a pretty good job.
Yeah. Marvelous AQLs, when they're not putting out them Senran Kaguras.
And they sure do make a lot of money on them Senran Kaguras.
Yeah, they do a lot of publishing. They're kind of in the same place as Nipponichi America, where they publish a lot of smaller Japanese games over here.
And I know you have talked about how you're not super satisfied with their work with Corpse Party 2021, but
No.
I mean, that's not them. It really isn't. Like, I like their work on, I think they did the work on No More Heroes 3, and they've been in charge of the localization for the Story of Season, Harvest Moon. We're not going to get into it. And
Yeah,
Rune
Story
Factory
of
games.
Seasons, the real Harvest Moon, comma, Story of Seasons.
And they work with, Arc System and like bringing the Grand Blue Fantasy versus games.
Yeah.
So good work from
yes.
them.
But
They need to pay the bills, but yes, good work from them.
But yeah, if you want to fall down a wiki rabbit hole, just look up AQ Interactive and all of the branches and side branches and subsidiaries.
It's an interesting developer, to say the least. Absolutely. Like, they've been doing things since the early 2000s, and they've existed to a degree because they have like a weird like connection to the Tetris series. Like, the Grandmaster Ace franchises them, and those are generally well-liked games. And they're the parent company of Artoon and Kavia. And despite the
Kavia
fact
no
that
longer a
both
company,
of those
Artoon
studios
still
don't
a company.
exist. No, not even Kavia. Kavia doesn't even technically exist. They just, Kavia exists whenever fucking Yoko Taro is interested in talking about Drakengard.
Yeah, everyone go look up Brownie Brown.
But anyways, so the game finally comes out in a limited capacity, which was pretty common back in the day. Is okay, fine. You guys said you promised that you wanted this game to come out of Japan and into the United States. It's going to have a limited release. Get it while it's hot, which was true. Getting a copy of this game was not easy.
People were very annoying online about this, and
I'd buy it. You have to send Nintendo the message.
And do we think it actually influenced? I feel like it did to some extent, right?
Well, of the 3 games you said, Nintendo got the message with one of those games.
Yeah, Nintendo published Xenoblade themselves, and then Xseed picked up the other 2.
I mean, if we're talking about the last story, I don't think this made an impression on anything when it came out.
This game feels like it very much. It sold over 100,000 copies worldwide. So it didn't do nothing, but Xenoblade is a million-seller franchise.
Easily.
And I think to some extent this game was overshadowed by Xenoblade.
Like, I remember the last story when it came out, but my full memory is seeing the GameSpot review, browsing through it real fast and going, huh, and then moving on. And I think that was most people's reaction to the last story when it came out. Was they saw a review, the score, which was, I mean, it got okay scores. 8s, that kind of thing. It's like, oh yeah, this is an okay game on the Wii somehow. And then everyone moved on with their lives.
Yeah. Remember when people wanted games to come out for the Wii?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
the good news is now we're here to talk about it.
And you know
after random people on the internet yelled at Reggie, and I paid $90 for a physical copy.
Considering all of that and the fact that it had this big groundswell of a, sometimes annoying subculture of people who constantly will get up in your mentions about how you have to play this version, not that version. I gotta say, guys, this game was pretty cool. Like, actually, is it worth the hype entirely? I mean, we can get into that discussion, but dude, this being a 20-ish hour long JRPG with admirable narrative aspirations and a scope that I deeply appreciate as a 30-plus-year-old person, man, this game was pretty cool.
All right, so I think it's time. Mr. Water, what in the hell is this game even?
So the last story is a Japanese RPG made in the Unreal Engine. for the Nintendo Wii. It had, and I think the only thing I knew about this game before playing it was that you could take cover and shoot like a Gears of War. It turns out that's actually not a very important part of the game. Instead, I would describe it as, and you said this before as well. This game feels like Sakaguchi trying to do his own take on FF12.
In more ways than one.
Yes. So, you control one character, and all of your party members are controlled by AI. There are no macros. There's nothing like that. Instead, your direct control is the ability to basically draw aggro. You have a button that is a draw aggro button. And so it is a JRPG where you are playing as the party tank / support character. All of the encounters are deliberately crafted. There aren't any sort of like random encounters or just throwaway fights. And it's very interesting. It's kind of a clusterfuck.
All right, so I guess this is where I pop off if you don't mind. So you play the game. You're a guy. We'll get into who the guy is. He's just some guy. You fight by using the directional stick to just run to an enemy, and then when you are pushing that direction, he just starts hitting the guy, like auto attack style. You gradually unlock other things you can do. A couple of like an SP bar and like an ult charge you can do. You eventually unlock the ability to like pause combat and give some very basic orders to teammates. The party size is up to like 6 or 7 people. It's a very large party size, and they're all doing their own thing in these arenas. And that's why it turns into a clusterfuck. Because you're running around either drawing aggro or not drawing aggro. There's either like one really big guy for boss fights or like 20, like 10 to 20 small guys running around. These arenas aren't that big because of the Wii. And you have mages and fighters and everyone just popping off all the time. Slowdown is a problem later in the game, I will say, because of this. In some boss fights that are like in very cramped quarters, like a very specific early game fight against a big turtle guy, are actually mostly unmanageable. So it has a very intentionally and well crafted encounter design. You know, it's supposed to be a combat puzzle, like every encounter that you get to. But it's like you take it's like you have like a tabletop wargaming setup. You have your pieces, and you arrange them very carefully. Being very smart about it. You take both hands and just smash them all together when the fighting starts. So it does have that kind of flow, but it's not a very punishing game because when your HP runs out, you get back up and you have 5, and every character has 5 lives per battle that refills after every battle. So there's no like item usage or like resource constraints or anything like that. You go in there and you do the thing. You can swap out weapons once you get more weapons that have different effects on different kinds of enemies later on in the game. But there's no like battle of attritions. There's no like resource checks. None of that. Like you go in there, it's a combat puzzle where all of the pieces get smushed together, and you do the thing and try to keep up with what's going on. And it rolls out the different systems, the different mechanics. You can like hide behind something and do a slash move. You can run up a wall. You can have a spin attack. Like
there
all
is
these things.
Press a button and everyone does a tactics.
Yep.
Yeah,
Basically,
like
you can tell people to like use a special ability, cast a spell, or run away to the nearest like healing circle.
It's like some very basic commands there, and you unlock that like halfway through the game or something.
Yeah.
So it rolls on mechanics very gradually. It is a very smooth mechanical onboarding for this game. and it's not a long game either. Like if you're doing like a completionist crazy person run, it's like 25 hours. There's a small overworld between some chapters where you can do some dumb side quests. I guess we can get to that. But mechanically, it's well thought out. Decent. Well, pacing is something.
Mhm.
The counter design's good, but just the very nature of the kind of action RPG it is, it does turn into a complete mess once fighting starts. But that's fine because it's designed around it.
You bring up two things that I think we're going to talk about later, but I do want to say this. The two things that I get in playing this game is one, it really does feel like that they were pushing the technical limits of the Wii, which of course, Sakaguchi made that kind of like his whole career reputation because he got the most out of the PS1. Like there's no denying that. And he also got a ton out of the PS2. I mean the Super Nintendo. So him trying to do that with the Wii, kind of like his whole thing. So I'm shocked at kind of what he got out of it. Technical quibble there is just there's so many jaggies and there's so many there's so much like you said, like there's a slowdown effect whenever there's too many particles. And there's just, screen tearing a lot.
And
But
also,
you
just
can
like the
really
textures aren't great either, for being
yeah, I
honest.
mean it's the Wii though. I mean that
It's
thing
the
is
Wii. Yeah, it's the Wii. Like the facial animations. What facial animations, right?
but you really feel like he was getting the most out of that console. And then two, and this is really something we'll explore later, it feels less about a homage to the core mechanics of the JRPG franchise and an effort to condense them to their basest parts. And I like that.
Yeah,
I
like the
also like that.
like the grognard, like the more grognardy aspects, like that you'd find in, let's say, a Xenoblade Chronicles X, for example, completely streamlined, very aerodynamic. I would say that the mechanics in this game, like they definitely made it. They simplified the nitty gritty stuff in order for you to focus on the things that have direct impact on the gameplay.
Mhm.
If that sounds right.
Yes, you can manage everyone's equipment
But even then, it's
if
just
you want.
there's like five kinds that each have their own bonuses. It's pretty obvious which kind you would want on which kind of character, and then you can upgrade each one 9 times.
Yes, and there are, for example, if you equip your fighting characters with the undead edge in a mission where you are fighting a lot of undead enemies, that has a meaningful difference.
Yeah, so the min maxing is just which sword do you have on,
Yeah,
and
and
it's not
I
like it's not even like the Pokemon thing. Like, okay, I need to use this TM, and I need to have these skills and all this, like doing that like min maxery, and like I need to make sure I get these level ups. It's like no, like you level when you kill things. You swap out weapons to maximize what you're doing in a given scenario, and then you just go hit things and draw aggro.
yeah, and sometimes you turn off the draw aggro button.
Yeah, because you get like a burst ability where if you get hit a bunch while you're drawing aggro, you can do like a AOE burst damage,
AoE stun
an
even.
AOE stun. Yeah,
So I think a lot of it is very well considered. I think in practice, it occasionally does just kind of involve all of your party members popping off without you having a ton of direct input. And sometimes that means they die, and sometimes that means they kill all of the other enemies without you having to do very much.
and that's why it's a good thing everyone has 5 lives in each
Yeah.
encounter, because things are going on that you have nothing to do with.
Yeah, I guess that's like the criticism with playing the game is there were times where it's like, oh wait, I guess you're dead. Well, okay, that happened. I don't know why it happened. I'm just going to revive you now and hope for the best. Oh, wait, you died again? I still don't understand why this happened. So I don't think that the game has great feedback on the consequences to you going into a battle and not piecing things together. But as you know, Borgmaster, you were saying, it's such a breezy game that tries to lower the punishment side of things in terms of, did you remember to put on the right bangle on your character? Like, it doesn't actually punish you in that regard. So the prep work going into the combat sequences is not a huge focus. You kind of need to do it with a handful of sequences. Well, you should, but it's not as overwhelming as other JRPGs. I think of analysis paralysis a lot, with especially the 360 PS3 era of JRPGs, with Final Fantasy games especially. But there's no analysis paralysis here.
And I mean, really, the only real gameplay criticism I have are the boss fights. There's a ton of boss fights in this game. There are dozens, and they're all like puzzle battle, like gimmick boss fights. It's not just you're in a room with a guy, everyone run up and whack him to death. There's a thing going on that you have to solve or figure out in order to defeat the boss. And when you have dozens of gimmicks and boss gimmicks in your game, it's easy for some or a lot of them to be garbo trash gimmicks that can be frustrating. Like that fucking Kraken. I hate that Kraken so much. Oh, that Kraken fight. Did either one of you fight the Kraken?
Yep.
Yeah.
That boss fight sucks. I was doing the thing where I was running up the wall to do the vertical slash, and I got the animation for the slash, but it was doing no damage to him.
There are a couple of other bosses that I feel like are just glorified gear checks, and that they're there. I mean, they didn't boil out all of the, I would say, gnarly bits of the JRPG genre, but yeah, there's some of those in there, gear checks.
Yeah, like there's
Not a
some
huge
really
fan of
bad
that.
boss fights in this game, and that's really the main criticism. And that's entirely around they had to think up, puzzle gimmicks for all these. And sometimes they're fine, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're very much not good.
Again, I think that gets back to like the poor feedback loop that the game provides, is like when you don't piece it together what the game expects out of you, it is just you. Well, I guess I'll try something entirely different, but I still don't get what I'm expected to do here, game. Like, what do you actually want me to do?
Or it's like if it's a fight where you can't even damage the boss until Mirania pops off her like nature element spell, but then Mirania keeps getting knocked down by random nonsense, and then the boss does the super moves and just cuts through all 5 of your lives. I'm not saying that just happened to me today while I was playing it, but there is stuff like that where like the thing you have to do is so specific, requires a caster you don't control to cast their AOE circle in a very certain spot in a very certain way that you are able to reach without either of you getting stunned by the boss. And there's usually not a lot of room to maneuver around. Like you are at the mercy of random nonsense for some of these fights when they get too specific. Like the one on like the pirate ship. Well, it's not pirate ship, but like the ship one pretty early on, where you're in a very small room and there's this enemy that is just bouncing around, hitting everyone constantly. And the solution for that is extremely specific. And if you don't figure that out, you're going to be redoing that boss a bunch of times. Or like the Necromancer, where you have a reflect parry thing you can do with guarding, and by the time you beat the Necromancer, you're gonna have that timing down for the magic reflect, because that's the only way to beat the Necromancer. And I guess
the window for that reflect is pretty generous.
it's pretty generous. I guess for me, I was having issues with my entirely legal and legitimate setup.
Yeah.
So I ended up fighting that guy like 3 times. It's always the bad bosses where my setup had problems. Like, let's talk about the haunted. Oh, no, actually, let's not talk about the haunted house level.
Actually, I kind of want to talk about that level.
Okay.
It's a fun side quest.
It's a side quest and it's fun.
Right to the boss. Where he
There
just
aren't a ton of side quests in this game. Well, okay. It's kind of all over the place, depending on which chapter or segment in the game you're in. Which leads to, I think, the other weirdness with this game, which is, this game's pacing.
So the plot and the structure,
Doesn't
I think we
exist.
should get to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. There's no pacing. They put everything in, and we're hoping for the best. And I think for the most part, I like the story when it's not overstaying its welcome with like a singular plot beat that goes on for too long, especially when it's related to like a villain that feels like dude from Titanic pissed off that he can't get girl. But it's got its
So do you
moments,
want to?
but boy, it's not paced well.
Do we want to go into more detail about the plot and the structure, like what's even going on here?
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So the protagonist this game feels unsurprisingly very Final Fantasy adjacent with its characters and plot. You are a mercenary boy named Zale who gets the power of drawing aggro in his hand from a mysterious voice in an underground catacomb, as one does. And then he and his friends in the mercenary band. There's his friend Dagrin,
He's like the leader of the mercenary band.
who's the leader of the mercenaries. There's the lady who is drunk all the time and flirts.
And just like
you,
to hit things
Serene.
like the Serene.
There's emo grumpy mage boy with an eye patch.
That's Yurik.
Yeah, there's Lowell, who is a Scottish man who's a ladies' man.
Who hits on everything that moves.
Yeah.
You gotta have a Casanova wannabe pervert dude.
There's Casanova wannabe. There's Mage Girl, who is also your healer.
She was raised by forest
Mirana.
spirits.
Yeah. Cares about forest spirits. And you're all having a good mercenary time. Doing mercenary stuff. And then, Zale gets this power, mysterious power of drawing aggro. And he meets a girl in an Aladdin-esque escapade through the city, where it's like, oh, this girl she's escaping from the guards, and it turns
There's
out
no reason to read too much into that. Why this girl,
Yeah.
Lisa, is sneaking through the city. This runaway rich girl, seemingly.
Yeah. And then it turns out she's the Count's niece.
The Count of so this game's on an island.
Yeah.
Like your mercenaries who show up to an island to do jobs for the Count because you heard that the Count has jobs to do for mercenaries. And it's while doing a job that Zale gets his aggro power.
Yep.
And then you meet the niece, the Count's niece of the Count's mysteriously dead brother, who was the Count before. Don't worry about it. And then things just kind of spiral out of control from there for Zale. And Zale is a pawn in the game of life, pretty much. All right, I'm just gonna take over the recap here.
Yeah. What happens?
The city is attacked by the Garak.
The Garak, they're led by Ganondorf.
Or led by Ganondorf.
Yeah, and they're these.
Garak, he's basically
he
Ganon.
so looks like Ganondorf. Like I'm
He's
amazed that they got away with that. He's freaking Ganondorf. I don't care what they say.
He's literally Ganondorf. It's very funny, but yeah, like these lizard men attack. There's lore. It's not well written lore, but there's lore. The whole like Zagreus and Zale's whole thing is they want to not be mercenaries, become knights, because mercenaries are the scum of the earth and are treated as such. They want to move up in society. When Count, totally not evil guy, finds out that Zale has the aggro powers, he's like, "Oh, this guy is the guy who's the key to the secret powers of the island." And there's some very light noble intrigue with the villain from Titanic, who's engaged to Callista, the niece.
And
Callista
we joke, but he is just he's the Titanic villain. Like that's
he's just the villain from Titanic. Yeah. I mean, he's less sympathetic than the villain from Titanic.
Yes, he makes Billy Zane look subtle.
Yes. Yeah, basically your typical anime shitty noble guy that I lost the reference. I lost the reference. Anyway, it's the character. So things happen. The Greg just keep attacking. There's an adventure on a stolen pirate ship at one point for reasons. There's a weird thing where the Count keeps dangling marriage to Callista in front of to Zale to get him to cooperate, and Zale's never given the chance to say whether or not he wants that. Did you two notice that?
Yes, I think one of the interesting things about Zale as a protagonist is, and this feels very intentional, is he is being constantly yanked around by other characters. He's just some guy, and he's like, "Oi, me and Callista, I met a girl named Callista."
Like, he just wants what's best for Callista. He has no idea what that is, though. But he's like, "No, this is a nice girl. I want to protect her." And there was like, "Oh, well, do you want to marry her? Oh, so you want to marry her, right?" And before he can even respond to that, they just move on.
Yeah.
And just, like, assume his intentions and without caring.
So, yeah, Dagran and the Count and...
Count, not evil guy.
Yes, Count, not evil man. They're all kind of...
The general mentor guy.
Yeah. There are parts of this game that feel like they're an earnest effort to modernize the heart of the JRPG genre for a new generation. There are also parts of it that feel like they are hallmarks to a bygone era, and the story is not exactly the most modern thing. Like we've kind of been dancing around it. The story is there. It has some twists and turns that I think are interesting, but
I think it's executed well enough.
And the production values are fine. I think the voice acting is definitely good, with a few exceptions where it feels a little too smarmy. But
there's some good stuff in the later parts of the game for voice acting.
Yeah. I'm with you, but the story for most of this 20-ish hour experience is not, I would say, a primary motivator to keep on going. Which is a weird thing to say, considering what Sakaguchi has done in previous games. But,
Actually, I did want to pose a question to the council here.
Yeah.
In the realm of central character romances in Sakaguchi directed or produced games, where does the Zale Callista romance fit? We have going back to Final Fantasy IV. I'm blanking on names right now. I don't know.
There's a little. I think there's a little bit of Locke and Celes in there.
I was going to say Zidane and Garnet from 9.
Yeah,
a little bit here.
A little bit. I mean, Zale is less of a pervert than Zidane, though.
No. Zale would be like, "Oh, I have to hold in a girl's hand."
But give me this, Borg. There are definitely parts of this game that feel like that weird marriage sequence in Final Fantasy IX, where it's like, "Haha, the joke is that everyone's awkward." and you
Oh, yeah,
gotta
no.
be awkward
The
with
humor in
them.
this game. Let's talk about the humor in this game.
Yeah.
Like the second dungeon in the game, you're raiding like a bandit warehouse,
Yeah.
and you walk in, confront the bandit leader, and then he just does like a Looney Tunes
Whips out.
trapdoor thing on on the cast.
It's straight up. Yeah, it's the Don Corneo bit.
It's
from
Don
FF7.
Corneo bit. And then when you finally confront him, he takes a frying pan to the back of the head, like it's Final Fantasy IV or something. Like you can identify all of the Sakaguchi-isms, like as they appear in the game. It's kind of wild that he's just doing what he thinks is his greatest hits with with the writing in this game. And I mean, should I spoil the thing because it drove me almost insane?
Let's just put out spoiler warning. We are going to move into that section. Give us how many minutes? 5 minutes? Let's go 10.
Less than
10
that.
minutes.
Okay, yeah. All right, so starting now, don't listen to this. It's a freaking evil asteroid.
Yeah.
Freaking Genova, man. What's up with that?
I think
the
that
outsider.
like,
yes.
personalizing and giving like a personality to an inanimate object actually feels like something from Final Fantasy V, where the villain is a giant evil tree wizard. But yeah, you're right. Like the meteor thing is like, whoa, they sure did let you redo Genova and somehow make Genova even weirder in this game.
Like, what is it with Sakaguchi and meteors? Because like like the meteor like spell like was from Final
4, 5.
Fantasy.
Oh yeah, I
Like
mean
Genova
the meteor spell.
is just a meteor. Like the outsider here is just a meteor. Like Yurik's ultimate is just meteor, literally meteor. What is it with Sakaguchi and meteors? That's what I want to know.
Meteors are scary.
Yeah.
And then, like, how do you get to the point where the Grok show up and like they have their own outsider and like their own moving island fortress, and then just ramming speed?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I will say the FMV is well done in a way that reminds me of like the PS1 Final Fantasy games, where you have like the janky in-game stuff, and then and then just snaps to like this very nice like epic scale like CG cutscene, and it snaps back to the janky in-game stuff. Like it feels like that.
The scale of the game is like one of the things where it feels like it's at least fighting blow for blow, not necessarily peak Final Fantasy, but at least the Final Fantasy games that are contemporaneous to it.
It's
Sakaguchi
just doing his thing.
You feel so minuscule in some of those set pieces, right?
Yeah, but the setting is it's an island. You're on the island. You're in the city on the island, and like you're under the city on the island. Sometimes you're on the ocean around the island. So you have like the big like saving the world, cosmic entity, like Sakaguchi Final Fantasy storyline that usually is accompanied by gallivanting across the planet. But here you're just on an island in a city. So it's like it's like taking like a big sprawling like Broadway production, but doing it as like a one room like small budget play that you see people do. Like it felt kind of like that, if that analogy makes any sense to anyone.
Yeah.
And that's kind of fascinating.
Yeah. It's a fascinating game in general, right? Like they really tried. Like you can't fault them for not trying. Do I think that it's perfect? No. But this is again, the black hole that this generation kind of represents to console JRPGs. I would feel okay recommending this game to someone. In fact, it's really easy to recommend for newcomers considering the low stakes, the welcoming gameplay structures other than a handful of boss fights, which I still think you can work through, and just a breezier length.
Wait, also spoilers over.
Yeah, spoilers are over. It's an easy. I don't know. I don't want to say that it's like low barrier to entry, because there are barriers.
Yeah, it's still a video game.
It's still a video game, but it feels I feel like I can recommend this game.
I mean, if anything, the
Yes.
main barrier to entry is Dolphin. If I'm being honest,
Or paying $90 for a physical copy.
or paying $90 and plus getting a Pro controller for your Wii.
Yeah, it's odd that, look, apparently Sakaguchi didn't actually end up enjoying working with Microsoft, but at least Microsoft has gone through the effort of making Lost Odyssey backwards compatible and easy to play on
Lost
modern
Odyssey, Blue
technology
Dragon,
today.
Infinite Undiscovery,
Yeah, they actually
even
tried.
Enchanted Arms are all back compat.
So
Yeah, there's actual preservation there, whereas Nintendo could not give a shit.
I mean, they give a shit about one of the 3 games that we mentioned that were led by Project Rainfall. They give a shit about one of them because it's led to a massive franchise that makes them quite a bit of money.
Wait,
But
before we
other
move
than
on,
that,
before we move on, I do want to mention this open world side missions in the game. They exist. There's no tracking. Like there's no like journal or like map markers or anything to track them. They're sometimes weird, sometimes mundane, and all you get from them are like upgrade materials. It's a weird thing. Like you collect MILFs at one point.
Yeah.
By talking to the fortune teller, say, "Hey, go to this spot." You go to that spot. You answer 3 correct questions to woo a MILF, and then they go. But they just go and hang out on the top floor of a tavern, and then they cheer you on whenever you visit them.
Yeah.
And that's all that amounts to.
There's a yes. There are like actual side mission, side quests where they're like bespoke dungeons.
It's like
with
6 of those.
Specific. There are like 6 or 7 of them. There's an
6 of those.
arena.
There's an arena
that updates over the course of the story.
like 3 times.
And, yeah. But this game's scope and scale are very contained since you only have the one city, really. And you only have a couple moments in the story where you have free time to just run around and do side quests and run into random goofy events, including MILF collection.
And like frog catching. Actually, you should catch 6 frogs because the first 6 frogs you catch give you a permanent boost to your agility stat. Pro tip.
Yeah.
Banana.
Oh, and then the banana man who gives you prank bananas for your crossbow. Yeah, so there is a first person shooting mechanic. That doesn't really matter. You have a crossbow, you have different arrow types. Some fights and bosses require using different arrow types. One of the final bosses is weak to prank bananas, which you can get from the banana man. If you give him a banana, he gives you 50 prank bananas. And all those dudes, if you shoot them at an NPC, it makes them slip and fall.
Yeah. It's a shockingly good.
Yeah, I shot a prank banana at Yurik and made him clip through a wall.
Yeah,
very good.
I just feel like even before I played this game, the Banana Man was a meme or a part of this game that I knew about because it was a bit of like a internet joke. And it turns out, yeah, prank bananas are actually a really useful tool for a specific boss battle.
Yeah. You can beat several bosses by making them slip over and over again.
But yeah, man, I guess I'm not surprised that this game hasn't really gotten a second win because it's tied to the Wii, which look, the handful of games that didn't make the transition from Wii to Switch, it's hard to imagine that they'll ever get the love and appreciation they deserve, but
it's still weird they never bothered to put Galaxy 2 in that Mario collection.
Super weird.
That is weird.
Super weird. But they did the first one.
Yeah, and even that collection was a limited run thing, right? That's like in the vault now.
Like the whole situation with the Mario like collection and or like celebration was a timed exclusive, and it's just the dumbest shit. Like Nintendo,
I mean, we can go all the way back to our second episode of this podcast.
Where we were talking about Fire Emblem and how,
Yeah.
like, wow, they finally brought Fire Emblem, the first one, to, modern console. Oh, wait, you have to get it within
Oh,
X
wait,
number of
it's a
days.
timed exclusive.
Like, I mean, I don't think that part of the puzzle is going to get any easier, just considering that now Nintendo has a nigh monopoly on video game console hardware.
Yeah.
So they're going to do whatever the fuck they want to do, and it sucks.
Yeah. So I don't feel like this. I guess, I could see Mistwalker maybe putting this out again at some point. Because, they finally put Fantasian out on consoles. But I don't feel like it's a high priority for them, which is a shame because I really like this game.
Yeah, this is basically lost media.
It's kind of all over the place.
Wait, no, it's abandonware. This is basically abandonware.
Yeah, it's kind of all over the place. It's you can see, let's say, the limited scope which they were working with, but I think that's to the game's benefit because it doesn't overreach, which I feel like when I talk about the JRPGs I like, a lot of them know exactly what they're doing and stick to it, or are excessive maximalist nightmares. One or the other. And this is the former. And I think that greatly benefits the last story.
Yeah. What are you going to do, though, man?
I'm going to talk about it on the internet.
Of all of the things that you've said that are like you justifying your purchases, this was so far the most pleasurable one.
I'll say this was a better experience than Xenosaga 2.
Yeah. And considering the other things that you have on your list, I think this is still going to rank rather admirably to some of the other things that are on that list.
I have this
Who
copy
knows?
of Pandora's Tower right here.
Maybe you'll finally finish Shadow Heart's Covenant.
I have a copy of Shadow Heart's Covenant right here.
Maybe one day we'll actually play Kudelka.
I do not own a copy of Kudelka. That's too much money.
Yeah, we should play Kudelka.
We should play Kudelka.
I have something. Yeah, let's.
Do we want to rank this?
We'll get
Do you
around
have
to
any
that.
other closing thoughts about this
No.
game?
Oh, I was
think
going
that
to
people
say
should play
that to me, the last story is like the platonic ideal of a 7.8 out of 10. Infer from that what you will.
I think video games are sometimes good, and the last story is probably one of the games I enjoyed playing the most for this podcast this year, which may be a low bar, but I think this game,
It was a pleasure, man.
it was a good time.
Considering what we've played for this podcast leading up to this point, and the fact that I'm still playing Type 0 for the Final Fantasy series, booting this up on the side, though not on stream because that was Braden's responsibility. It was fine. Ah, fuck. I just realized what we need to play after this.
Yeah, no, let's rank it. Let's
All right,
rank
yeah,
it.
Braden.
The ranking.
All right, so you can find our list at bit.ly/OTDE rank. If you didn't listen to our filler episode a couple weeks ago, we added like 5 or 6 games that the main pod also played.
Yeah, you sure
that
did.
we have played. So, you can see how you can get upset about us putting Undertale in the top 10 because guess what? I think Undertale's actually really good.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not sorry.
So-
But our current top 3: Might and Magic 6: The Mandate of Heaven, Suikoden, Genso Suikoden even, and Xenosaga Episode 1. At some point, we'll find games that are higher than those. At the bottom 3, at number 80, we have Unlimited Saga, Hoshiwo Mirohito, and Descent to Undermountain. Where are we starting, boys? Where are we dropping?
all right, so this is really hard because this game is less good than Mass Effect the first, but better than Eternal Sonata.
I have an idea. Let's start at the 10 position. And
Okay,
then work
let's start
our
at
way up or down.
Undertale.
Okay,
I would
is this
rather play
better
this game
or-
than Undertale.
You would rather play this in Undertale.
Yes.
Would you rather play this than Disco Elysium, though?
Yeah. I really liked this game. I probably am the most positive on this game of us 3.
Okay, as someone who's spent a lot of times exploring different like plot threads in Disco Elysium, I would say this is a more mechanically rewarding experience. I'm okay with you moving it above Disco Elysium. What's above Disco Elysium?
Arcanum.
Well, it's better than Arcanum.
And above Arcanum is Ogre Battle 64.
Oh boy.
Did you did we enjoy the last story the right way?
I would say yes, but
I would say yes. When people came into my streams and are like, "This game's underrated," I'm like, "Yeah, you might actually be right for once." Underrated is a bad word. Don't use underrated or overrated. It's a term that means nothing except I think it should be more liked than it is or less liked.
people don't talk about this game enough. I feel would be a better way to say.
People don't talk about Wizards and Warriors 2000 enough, but I feel but you
I
know,
think they talk about it just enough for what it is.
But that game is
No.
properly rated, I would say.
I think that it's underrated.
Okay, so I'm willing to
How
put
about
it
number
above
8?
Ogre Battle.
Above Quest for Glory, I'd put it above Quest for Glory.
Because this isn't better than Parasite Eve, so that's the ceiling. Is number 8 for this game.
All right. I feel good about that. So it goes below Parasite Eve.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Our new number 8, The
Sorry,
Last
Undertale,
Story.
you're out of our top 10.
It's in our top 10.
Though
So,
Mass Effect is better
we
than
had a
this
good
game.
time. We
No,
enjoyed
it isn't.
life. We played a game that brought us pleasure and delight.
Yeah, well, I have
Yeah.
great news, gentlemen.
Oh boy. Oh god.
Our new
June
number
is
1
coming
coming
up.
up next.
June is coming up. Solstice is coming up. And know what else is coming up? Vomit from my mouth. Because we
met
reached our patron goal.
Our goal. And we've been saying this for a while. Braden, what was our donation incentive goal for Off the Deep End?
We're going to play Lunar Dragon Song for the Nintendo DS. And it conveniently also coincides with Solstice, so it's going to be our summer Solstice game. I'm very excited, to play the worst thing.
We're going to need a new Patreon incentive for the next.
We need to figure out what we want to do for our...
We've already said this. When we get to 100, we're playing Yik 2.
Or Y2K. Or Eek.
Eek, yeah.
But yeah, we need to hash out an idea of, now that we've actually met Lunar Dragon Song, what's the next bad?
What's
actually,
the next
no. You know what? I've got an idea.
Okay.
We do it. We fucking do it, Braden.
Yeah. Do what?
Raven's Cry pre-pull.
Oh,
Pre-pull.
we
get
could do
Cass.
Raven's Cry.
We get Cass to give us the build of that game before.
Oh, I have it. Don't worry, I still got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we got it. So how many? We need 10 donos from this point forward.
I think.
Yeah,
I would
10 more.
say maybe we go up a little higher than that.
15.
Maybe we say, when we get to 60 patrons.
Okay.
Yeah, because we need
For
to
those
stay
that
in line
don't
with
know,
the
We're
this is a
we're
literal-
at 50.
This is
So
a
we need
literal
60.
game that is so bad that even Cass
Yeah.
considers it one of the worst things she's ever
They've
played.
Yeah.
And then also, this is a version of the game that is no longer accessible anywhere because it's that fucking awful. Think of that like Afro Samurai game that was deleted off of
They
everything.
literally deleted it off people's hard drives. Yeah, the original launch version of Raven's Cry. I also have Vendetta Curse of Raven's Cry, which is the quote unquote fixed version of that game.
It's still bad.
That you can, wait,
Is this an RPG though?
Yeah, it's from
yeah.
the Two Worlds people.
Okay.
It's a made in Poland joint.
So it's Eurojank.
And it's maximally Eurojank, supposedly. But yeah, let's put Raven's Cry as our next donation goal or Patreon goal. I believe Oji-san cast patrons count for 2. So if you got 5 of your friends to sign up for our Patreon at the $3 level, you too could force us to play a bad pirate game. Isn't that exciting? But yeah, our next episode's gonna be. It's gonna be Lunar Dragon Song.
We're gonna saunter our way to saving the world.
Yeah, slowly walk our way. I mean, people love the part in Morrowind where you walk at a snail's pace. So I mean, surely this game that literally drains your health for running.
And then you don't have direct control over your fucking characters.
Yeah, just like this game.
I don't think that is the game that killed the franchise because, that franchise
was
already
Lunar ever alive? Question mark.
But boy, howdy, man. Shit. I'm going to say this. I'm going to just say this part, Braden. I'm going to say it out loud. We are playing a worse game than the main podcast, and I don't care that Gino thinks that Duke Nukem Forever is the hardest and or worst shit he's ever played.
Yeah,
Lunar Dragon Song is so much fucking worse than Duke Nukem Forever. Holy shit. Duke Nukem
Forever is vile and terrible and mostly boring.
And Gino, if you are listening to this, I fucking double dog dare you to even try to play this game for like an hour. You played Unlimited Saga, so I know you can do these weird Byzantine bullshit games. So we are playing a game that is so much worse than whatever the shit you're dealing with in Duke Nukem Forever. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. That is truth. But yeah, fuck.
We're gonna have a lot of fun. It's going to be a bad time. Unlike the game we just played, The Last Story. So yeah,
there's no such thing as cheating.
No, thanks. You can find me at twitch.tv/arbitrarywater. I'm gonna still put my writing somewhere else, but I guess you can still find my blogs on Giant Bomb. Borgmaster, you can find him at twitch.tv/5thGenerationGaming or 5th Generation Gaming. Blogspot, something. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Adam Borgmaster. Thank you, Super6420. Thank you, people at home, for listening to another episode of Off the Deep End. There's no such thing as cheating in a single player game. There's no such thing as paying $90 for a single player game. Bye.
Oh, I'd step away.